everyone, and welcome back to my channel. This is Erica from Confessions of a Homeschooler, and today we are going to talk about my top picks for writing curriculum. So I have a few that I'd like to share with you that we have tried and liked over the years. Hopefully this will just give you a starting point if you are looking into researching writing curriculum for your homeschool. So one of the things that we started out using was BJU Press, mainly because it came in conjunction with our English curriculum. All right, so for the BJU curriculum, their writing is actually part of their English curriculum. And so it's kind of nice that you only have to purchase one thing and you kind of get two subjects taken care of. And how it works is they do 1 week of English, so maybe they would be learning nouns this week, and then next week they'll do a writing unit, and then the next week they'll do nouns or verbs or something, and then they'll do another writing unit. And so it alternates throughout the year, so they're doing writing every other week. And some of the things that they cover here are writing a personal narrative, writing a friendly letter, writing a compare and contrast essay, writing a book review, and, writing a tall tale, writing a research report, writing a business letter, and writing poetry. And so I definitely like that they cover writing all kinds of different styles of things. One thing that I didn't love about this is I felt like there was a lack of instruction, and so there is a lesson that you would do with it, just like their English lessons, and you kind of go through and you sort of teach them, like, this is kind of the style of this writing, this is how it should be formatted, and then from there I don't feel like there's a whole lot of instruction. It's kind of like, okay, so go write your friendly letter or whatever. That worked great for my daughters. It did not work as well for my son. He had an extremely hard time coming up with ideas of what to write, and so this curriculum just was quite stressful for him. And not only that, but I was getting the bare minimum out of him. If he had to write, you know, a handful of sentences, that is literally all he wrote. There was no extra, let's make this story better, let's add in some more colorful words, none of that. And while I tried to kind of encourage him to do that, it just wasn't working very well. And so while I think that this curriculum is probably great for some kids, if you have somebody who's struggling in writing, this is unfortunately not my top pick. If you have someone who is doing great with writing and you're looking for kind of an all-in-one type of thing, then I do like BJU Press. It worked well for us for quite a few years. It's just once we started getting into that situation where I wanted more out of them, I felt like BJU wasn't quite delivering for me for that. And so we started looking for something else. I also used, and I think this is great for younger kiddos, we did WriteShop, and I will try and link my top picks down here below for you so you know where to find everything. And I also have a writing forum on my blog as well, which I'll link, where people kind of, you know, chit-chatted back and forth about things they liked and whatnot, and that might help you out as well. So, but what I found for my younger kids I loved, and it's called WriteShop, and they have several levels, and it goes up into higher grade levels. We only used it when they were younger. But WriteShop is great in the aspect that it's a lot more teacher-led. There's a lot more back and forth kind of working together to come up with topics, and you kind of, you know, set out your little, you know, rubric and kind of get, like, you know, just the bare bones kind of done together with you and your student. That really helped my son out quite a bit. Instead of like, here's how you do something, now go do it, I felt more like we were like, okay, here's how we do it, now let's come up with some ideas together. What can we write about? Let's do some brainstorming together, and we would do it, you know, on a whiteboard, and he would help. And so I felt like that really worked quite a bit. They have a much more creative way of teaching writing, and I really enjoyed it. It's definitely very teacher intensive. It's something that you do with your student, not something you kind of hand them a worksheet and they just kind of go off and do it. So definitely something to be aware of, but I liked the style, I liked the technique. They had story starters, and they had a lot of kind of colorful, you know, like little cards and things like that that could kind of just help, I think, encourage a struggling writer. And so we really did enjoy WriteShop. If you've ever checked them out before, Kim Kautzer has done a few talks on writing and how to teach writing, and she is just phenomenal. I love her theories and all of that, and her that is reflected definitely in their curriculum, and so we really liked that. Once my kids got a little bit older, though, it wasn't working quite as well for me. I was kind of having, one of the things I was having a hard time with was how to grade writing, and I feel like WriteShop did a really good job of encouraging my reluctant writers, but I needed a little bit more help as far as you know, getting their stories more you know, just more detail, more exciting, just, you know, just a little bit more like, you know, beef to their stories, and not just like, okay, here's my paragraph and it's fine, but it's not like, you know, stellar, right? Like I want to read this. And so one of the things that I had been not wanting to do was Institute for Excellence in Writing, and I'd heard lots of other people talk about it and love it, and it just seemed too stressful to me, which was my own fault because I just didn't really look into it that much. But I had some people say, oh, we took this 3-hour teacher's instruction thing and it's kind of pricey. It definitely is. But it just stressed me out. I thought, oh man, I'm not game for all of that. But I ended up looking into it anyways, and I am so thankful that I did, because it is now probably my all-time favorite writing curriculum ever. We have used it for several years now, and we started out with the student writing intensive, group A, because my kids were a little bit younger. And this is kind of what it looks like. It comes with, sorry, they're upside down. It comes with the DVDs, and then this is like the teacher's manual and student handouts. And you can do an electronic version or you can do a printed version. And from Group A, they have another one called Continuation A, which is what we moved to when we were done. And how it kind of works, they have A, B, and C, and it kind of depends on the ages of your kids when you're starting. So I had younger kids, so we started out with Group A, and I don't remember them off the top of my head, but Group B is kind of more for like middle-aged kids, and then Group C is for like older kids. And it's basically the similar style and content. It's just, you know, the subject matter is different from like Group A to like Group C. So, you know, an older student doesn't want to maybe be reading the little kind of kid stories, and, you know, the older stories are too hard for the younger kids and whatnot. So you just need to look on their website and find out the ages of your kids, and then it kind of directs you into which group would be best for you to start. And I do suggest you start with their student writing intensive. I know it sounds intense, but it actually was so much easier than I thought it was going to be, and I could not love it more. But basically what you do is we watch the video together. So we put in this DVD, and Mr. Andrew Pudawa teaches the lesson for me. I watched it with our kids, but it wasn't like I had to teach something. And once you're done watching the lesson, there are assignments that follow. And for the first, right at the beginning, he actually does quite a bit with them, and it's just a different theory than what I had been using before. So the students take a text that is already written, and together with the instructor on the video, they pick out keywords, is what they call them, from each sentence. So, you know, here's a sentence, what are the most important words in that sentence? And let's just write them over here. And then they do it for the next sentence. And at first I didn't quite understand why they were taking something that was already written and pulling keywords out, but essentially they use those keywords then to rewrite the same story, but they can't see it anymore. They write it in their own words and off of their keyword. And really what that is a keyword outline. So what they've done is they've created an outline from something that was already written, and then they've written their paragraph from that outline. And so they do that for a little bit. They start editing those stories. Hey, could we take this word? Is there a better word we could use? They have a banned words list that they go through, and I have a full review for the IEW writing curriculum, and I'll link that below so that you can see it, because I go into all the details on how it works and everything in that, so I don't want to kind of redo that here. But basically they're taking something that's already written, pulling out an outline from that, and then rewriting it. And they do that, they do that quite a bit at the beginning, and I thought, okay, well, I don't know, it seems kind of weird that they're doing that. But as he progresses through the lessons, pretty soon it evolves into them like, okay, now you go do your own research, go get a book from the library and let's do that. Okay, now let's not do it from a book, but now let's find a topic you want to write about. You already know how to do the outline because we've done it so many times, right? Go do some online research or books or whatever you need to and write your own outline. And then now we're going to write our own, story from that. And so they do cover different types of writing, research reports, story writing, and all that kind of stuff. They just do it from kind of like not a backward perspective, but backwards from how most curriculum are, I think. So instead of saying, here's how you do it, you go come up with something and do it, they're saying, okay, let's actually work backward. Let's take something that's already written and kind of work backward, and then you're rewriting it. And so at first I wasn't completely sure about that, but oh my goodness, I could not speak more highly of this. All of my kids' writing abilities have just skyrocketed. Especially I have one reluctant writer who definitely was having a hard time, and I was getting the bare minimum work from that student, and it was just hard for me to like encourage that person to make their stories better and add more colorful words and make it more interesting. And this curriculum by default, they have a checklist that they have to fill out each time, and to make sure that they have all those things in there. And so just, it's like a byproduct that their stories are much more interesting. They're much richer, full of content, and they are encouraged to use, you know, better words and more vocabulary and all of those kinds of things. They have a banned word list. They can't use words like said, went, go, so they have to find something better. And not only do they have to find something better, but he gives them several lists of things to choose from, so that concept isn't completely overwhelming. Like, think of a word to replace the word said just on your own. He sits there and goes through, and they come up with a class and they write it on their papers and everything, just as many words as they can think of instead of the word said. And so they've gone through this process with the instructor on the DVD, so that when it comes time to write, they can just quickly flip back to that and be like, oh, I want to use this word, you know, or whatever. And so it just automatically makes their writing so much more detailed and just more interesting. And the stories that have been coming out of this class are just phenomenal. I love seeing the imagination that I know that my kids have inside of them come out on a piece of paper, because it's an extremely kind of daunting task to write something. You know, kids are super creative and imaginative, and then when they have to then translate that onto a piece of paper, it just, there's something gets lost in the translation if they don't have, I think, the right guidance. And so for us anyways, this IEW curriculum has been just absolutely amazing. The writing has just been, I love reading their stories now because they're so much fun. The other thing that I love about it is that it makes grading for me a breeze. They have a checklist of everything that they have to do, and all I have to do is go down and make sure that they did all those things, and then they get a grade based on that. And you're not necessarily looking at spelling until you get a little bit older, and then spelling is a list on there, and it's like, you know, if there's this many spelling errors, then they lose some points and that kind of thing. But really more what he's encouraging is the content first, and then he starts kind of picking on grammar as they get going. But I think that, you know, if at the beginning, if you've got a really young writer and they're doing their best to try and get information, and you're like, well, this word's spelled wrong and you forgot a comma here, and you're kind of nitpicking the grammar of it, then it can kind of hinder the creativity of their writing process. And so just having those checklists for me has been a tremendous help, because it just makes it so much easier for me to grade their work and be like, okay, I have to let this go. It's not on their list, and I would have added that in or fixed this or whatever, but that's not what's on the checklist for today. It will be on one when they get a little bit older, and I'm fine with that. So anyways, this is by far my all-time favorite writing curriculum. If you are at all worried about it, I did not take the teacher training. So if you're worried about that, I don't know if they would approve of that or not, but I didn't. I just watched the videos with my kids, and I have not had any kind of problem whatsoever helping to teach through this course and help them with their writing. So I absolutely love it. We have since moved into their history-based and theme-based writing units for my older kids because they've gone through the writing intensive. I do suggest you start with that because it teaches the style and the technique and all of that. The theme-based writing units are super fun. It's definitely more student-led. It's less, you know, we sit down and kind of do a lesson together, and then they have assignments throughout the week. But it's definitely more independent work study, and so they're reading history. You can do different kinds of themes and things like that. We picked US history and ancient history for our kids. But they go through and read some kind of a historical text, and then they kind of are doing the same word, you know, word outline, rewriting it and things like that. There are vocabulary in there as well, so no need to add that in extra. And they also get quite a bit of grammar out of it. We're still doing that in conjunction with the Fix-It grammar from IEW. But I think reading and rewriting, you know, things that are already written really helps with the writing process and the grammar as well. And then my last thing to add, just as far as teaching writing in general goes, is to encourage reading. The more that your kids read, the more comes out in their writing, because they're seeing how other stories are written in there, and they start kind of emulating that just by default. And so if they're reading really, you know, fun, interesting stories, or, you know, my daughter loves encyclopedias about horses and learning just, you know, actual facts about things like that, that really has come out in her writing, because seeing it, reading it, and then when they go to rewrite something on their own, that all just kind of translates. So definitely with any writing curriculum, I definitely encourage reading as much as you can, and not necessarily like a boring reading curriculum, but like go to the library and get books that interest them and that really fire them up, because that will really prompt creativity and you know, just all of those kinds of things that will come out in their writing in the future. So anyways, I hope that makes sense. But anyways, those are my top picks for writing curriculum. We are currently using IAW writing, and I don't foresee changing that unless something drastic happens. That is my all-time favorite pick. The others I mentioned are also great. Kind of depends on what style you're looking for and what fits your family's needs best. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it was helpful for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.